Hello, good evening. I'm Johnny Minkley. I'm a games critic and broadcaster. We'll be talking about just the artistic vision, the creative possibilities of video games. And on that note, we have a lovely display behind us in the background here. Now, what that is we started all this off with a competition for PlayStation community members that was kicked off via the blog, and we asked people to send in their own artwork that they created that's inspired by their video game experiences. And the ones that you're seeing along the back now, we had tons of fantastic entries. And these are the ones that we've mounted them, but they're all original artworks produced by guys, and they were selected by my fabulous panel alongside me who will be talking about art in games. I wonder, do we consider that all video games are art, or is there something about certain video games that makes them stand out?
I think video games are a medium through which art can be potentially created. So not all games are necessarily artistic, but it is a medium through which artistic works can be done.
I think there's a lot of untapped potential in games still. And I think that an art form is about communication to the viewer, player, reader, whatever. And there's a lot of games out there that are communicating a consistent message really well, but I think there's a lot more messages to be communicated, and whether it's big team, small team, or whatever, I think that games are art. I just think that there's a lot left to do.
I'm going to disagree with everything that everybody's just said. I don't believe that games are art at all, in fact. I believe that games are craft, and it's a craft that you learn, and it's a skill that you learn, and you have to put a tremendous amount of hard work and day after day grind into it to produce the gorgeously beautiful things that you see on the stage that we saw today. And maybe it's because I'm an old warhorse and I don't really like to get into this whole discussion anyway, so I was kind of surprised that they actually put me up here in the first place. But to me, it's, especially after I spent the last 10 years in Japan, they have a thing called kodawari. And kodawari is basically where somebody spends basically the whole of their life perfecting a skill. And they achieve national status, some of these people, but they're not called artists, they're called craftsmen. But if you ever went to one of these guys in Japan and says, is it art? He'd cut your head off, basically. It's not. It's about spending and retaining and refining things, giving somebody an emotion, but it has a use. And that's really important to me in games.
That's a really interesting perspective. So, Mr. Shida, as the Japanese gentleman on the panel, do you understand the difference he's drawing between an artist and a craftsman?
No, I don't. But,
I'm sacked.
The question to Gavin actually is, so why you're calling yourself the art director?
I don't call myself my art director. It's Human Resources call me art director. So I have to, under the company rules, say that I'm an art director. Yeah.
So we should start calling you craftsman?
Yes, that would be great.
My head's spinning a bit trying to take in everyone's point of view, because I think they're valid, and I think of myself as a craftsman as well, but in the end, your craft is for an end. I think I was very inspired actually by Criterion over the road from our studio, who someone described it to me that they make these beautiful pop culture, they're a perfect Coke can of lovely consoleness. And when we started our studio to work on PlayStation, I wanted a personal message. We had a vision of explaining to everyone how games are made, like the Lego of games. That's what we wanted to make before we even knew what Little Big Planet was. But at the same time, I was looking at these amazing products that reached these huge audiences, and I wouldn't call them art in the sense of the personal, the unfinished swan, the journey, the small team kind of vision. But on the other hand, I loved the fact that they were this thing that reached people and touched people in different ways. And the more we can demystify the way games are made, the more people will connect with them. Because everyone believes they know how films are made, whether they're right or wrong. They think, yeah, you get a camera, you get some people, and you film it, and then it's done. And that's not actually right, but they think they understand the process. And I love the fact that there's this trend towards a kind of indie thing where people believe, yeah, I understand how 1, 2, 5 people could put a game out, and I can see the pieces. And that, for me, is exciting and changes what games are. I don't know if it's art or not, but it changes what games are in the eyes of the audience who are consuming it. So.
Now, for a company, a platform holder, a publisher, a lot of that is really commercially risky. There's no guarantee that funding any of this stuff is going to earn you any money at the end of the day. So why do you do it?
Why do we do it? Yeah, because we love to do it. And actually, these groundbreaking game like Little Big Planet, really works financially as well in the end. When something really imaginative and new is realized. So we we are big fan of continuing to bet on these creative people working on new ideas.
Because I mean, Kelly, could you imagine another sort of supersized publisher of supporting you in the way that game company was nurtured?
Certainly not in the way. I mean, I think...
What difference did it make to what you were doing?
It made all the difference. It made it possible. I think Shuhei had a great way of putting it, which is, why do we do it, and why did we as developers and the people we've connected with within the Sony family, why do they support us? There's no other reason than just because you love it, because you feel like it's the right thing to do, and this game needs to be made. And that answer is something that's really hard for a publicly traded company to justify their decisions with, and it takes a lot of faith. And I think we were very, very fortunate to work with such people. They're hard to find.
It's interesting that, with us, it's not at all like the developer-publisher relationships that I've heard about, where publishers will say, oh, this contract that we signed 2 years ago when the game was completely different said you were going to have 2 vehicles in your game. Why do you only have 1 vehicle? You need to have 2, because that's what it says here. And, I think a lot of it just comes at Sony from the top down, that, because Shuhei is obviously personally committed to it, so much that he will sit on a panel and talk about it, that everyone else feels like it's okay to get personally involved too.
Where it came from originally, back when it was released in 1994, most of the producers who made those games back then came from the music industry, from Sony Music. And that's why they have this ethic and quality inside the studio to allow people like these to go away and be creative. Don't F with the artist, basically. You're going to be given time, you're going to be given the money you need, as long as you pull out something special.
I'd be interested in what the panel thinks about where we are right now with technology and gaming, how, in terms of the type of games that you want to create, how limiting is it, and what, with what you think is going to happen with future technology, what will that enable you to do that you can't do now?
I think we've been in a graphics race for a really long time, and I'm bored of that, actually. I think that games like Journey have been incredibly successful visually. But I think as far as technology goes, interface is a place to pioneer. And with things like the Vita or the Wonderbook, you don't have a controller anymore. Maybe it's your body, or maybe it's something that has move sensitivity, or maybe it's got touchpads or whatever. But I think that's really, that gets back to the core of what games are good at, is interaction. And if you're giving new ways to do that, then there's new possibilities and new ground to break that way. I mean, the graphic stuff, better rendering and photoreal stuff's always going to, computers are always going to get faster and faster and faster, and that's just inevitably going to happen. But I think the creative part is more in, how you interact with what you make.
Do you think there's in looking at games and art and how they fit together, do you think there's looking at that as the differentiation between fine art and applied art is a valid sort of dichotomy? Is it a valid way of looking at games, do you think?
I'd say we're still making applied art. We still haven't got there. Even though you can get amazing emotional responses.
But some people are. I'm going to disagree. Yeah, some people are.
I was going to lean that way, actually.
Okay.
When do you think we will, Gavin? If we're not now, when do you think we might?
I think we will exactly when we start growing up a little bit more, and we stop chasing that technology bubble to a certain extent, and we start thinking more along the lines of the emotions of our users and what we want to say physically as human beings out there. If you look at a lot of filmmakers, for instance, and a lot of them wouldn't say they're even artists at all, but they're trying to make personal statements or political statements or religious statements, and we're not really doing that yet.
What's important about, to me, the conversation of games are art is that we recognize that games make us feel things in general, and as players we can talk about how we respond to games, but especially as game makers, we're having conversations about how what we do in our games is affecting our players, and talking about it and taking responsibility for it and evolving through that process.
I was trying to work out this art games thing, because I don't commonly ask myself a film art, and maybe in a way they're not, they're a craft, but they're films of film, and I love the idea that games are games, but I love the idea that games are growing up, taking responsibility. These themes are really interesting, and it's to do with the context that you consume it in and the context that you make it in. So like the original question, the previous question was, maybe the applied arts are consumed in a different context than the fine arts, and I think there are games to be consumed with your friends on the sofa, and there are games to be consumed, on your own as a private moment between you and the game creator, and those will be more fine artish, but I don't need them to be fine art. I just need them to be personal game experiences. And so when UGC comes into it, it becomes more personal, because it's, that it's a guy or a girl on the other end of this tool that you probably know how it works. And so by definition, user-generated content is in the context of a personal experience. And so I like the fact that UGC gives you that connection. But it's not necessarily fine art, but it's in that one-to-one, wow, this person was trying to say this thing to me or do this thing.
In the way you look at it then, can someone within your game create their own art with just the way that they're sort of using it as a blank canvas?
Yeah, and that's something that was there from the very beginning. That we found that one of the most emotional moments that people have in the game is when they get to a point and they can see all the things that they've created, and we just kind of sort of give them a little bit of elevation, and then have them turn the camera back, and suddenly the world is revealed, and it's surprisingly powerful because it's very personal.
So I just want to say to final thoughts then, really, from the panel, I suppose summarising everything we've been talking about over the past hour.
I'd love to see more development in the open and engaging with our audience, because I think gamers have a diet of more than one type of game. They enjoy, the weird stuff, but I think they also can enjoy other kinds of games at the same time. And I'm really inspired by, the process of development where people like Notch are developing, and there are nightly builds, and he's engaging with his audience as a part of the design process. So for me, my future, I really look forward to game developers engaging with their audience directly, because it will lead to weirder stuff. I never underestimate the gamers. They aren't just wanting bread and butter every day. They want that, but they also want some freaky stuff on the side. And let's find out what that is and how they want it, because we learned with UGC, never ever underestimate the gamers. Oh my God, they can do incredible stuff. So yeah, that's what I want to see more of.
Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation for the panel. Thanks, guys.